Good evening, everybody. It is 7:01 on May 24th, 2023. I'd like to call this meeting to order right now. And we'll start off with roll call. Joan Munn, Councilperson 1.
Here.
David Budrist, Position 2.
Present.
Stephen Harvey, Position 3.
Present.
Chris Moritz, Position 4.
Here.
And Levi Shank, Position 5.
Here.
Very good, thank you, Council. Would you two like to be recognized and on the record?
Just as well.
Okay, Mike and Virginia? Freeze? Additions to the agenda.
I have two.
Okay,
One, I want to talk about the public access of files, and second of all, recurring agenda items going forward.
okay. Next on the list is to approve the minutes from May 10th. Has everybody had a chance to look through those?
Move to approve.
Do you not have?
Okay. Didn't see it. That's okay.
Sloan, I can give you my computer. It's all there.
So we have a motion on the floor to approve the minutes,
I'll second it.
seconded by David. We have a motion to approve and a second. Discussion.
Another wonderful job of capturing a very complicated meeting.
No further discussion. We ready for a vote?
Chris is getting caught up.
Okay.
Okay. Got it.
Looks good to me. Looks good to me.
Good to me.
Well, with a motion on the floor and a second. All of those in favor of accepting the minutes as posted, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same. Carries 5-0. Thank you. Next on the list is to approve the claims and the prior check register. So let's start off with the claims here first.
Move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
So we got a motion and a second to accept the claims. Discussion?
Without getting into too much discussion, is it common for Anatech to send us multiple invoices dated the same day? I mean, they were clearly different numbered invoices.
We did careful looking at those. Sometimes they'll send them 2 days apart.
Okay.
It was the time
These are all
that
the same too.
What's that? Yeah. The invoices are in there, I looked at them.
Does that represent a week?
You're charging $432 a week.
I think I'm going to ask the treasurer to fill that blank in for you.
I think it's basically, as far as I can tell, it's based on the actual testing.
Okay.
And whether it's done every day or not, it looks like it's a little more random than that.
All right.
And it could be that the invoice was a different invoice, but got printed the same day as the other one.
The invoices are here if you'd like to take a look at them, David.
Okay.
Also,
No worries, I just,
hold it.
And those particular tests are always the same price.
Okay.
in regards to the public water system annual fee, Department of Health, I don't recall seeing that before.
I didn't last year either, but that appears to be a standard feature from the county.
Is it just because we're here?
I think it's because they can.
Okay, but we don't get anything, we're just signed up in the club, right?
Yeah.
Type thing, okay.
Is it county or state? I thought that.
No,
Department of Health.
Department of Health, Lincoln County.
Probably County, yep.
Let me see the close.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My understanding of it has been that has to do with these, our contribution towards the services that they provide that become relevant to Harrington. As recently, there was a question about public health with one of our buildings and the pipes running underneath them and cracks in that pipe. So regardless of how that got in place and what the amount gets set as, I think some of the theory is that that's there to offset some of the services that they provide for the city instead of having our own health department. And I do recall seeing that in years past.
And this is actually from the state of Washington.
That one is?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that $532?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was county. Well, then I guess I don't know what. Still do remember seeing the line actually.
Yeah, it says Olympia. Well, the fee is based on, according to this, if you read that, residential service connections, non-residential service connections. I don't understand this. Operating permit fee.
Well, we're gonna have a permit fee, just like we have a wastewater permit with the state.
This is the state.
I know. I'm just saying, this is for freshwater, what we
Oh,
have to do for wastewater also.
It has an operating permit fee of $400 and an operator certification system fee for $132,
okay, there you go.
for a total of $532. So, that one right there.
Did you want to see that?
That was my only questions.
Any further discussion?
I just got one, I misspoke. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Great, the pet waste bags in the city park. How
Yes.
often do we purchase those?
Like every 6 months.
About 6 months.
I've done it twice now.
Okay. Okay, now
So
I'm done.
maybe once a year, you know,
Yeah.
there are 900 bags in there. And you'd think if you walk through the park that they'd probably last a long time because
People don't use them anyway.
not a lot, no. Well, it seems that if you have a little dog, you use it. If you have a big dog, you don't.
You run.
Well,
Yeah.
Run as fast as you can.
You would think it would have been
I don't know why
For
that.
sandwich bags?
You know. So, yes,
Okay. $107.
yeah, there's, like I say, that's 900 12-inch long bags
Okay.
that say poo on them.
For good reason.
Yeah,
Okay, now I'm done.
okay.
I'm satisfied.
So we got a motion and a second to accept the claims as written here. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Abstention, I'm on it.
His reimbursement.
Yeah.
Okay. Levi, did you catch that one?
That was an aye for me.
Okay, so that's 401.
401.
Very good. Thank you.
Alrighty.
Next item on the agenda, I received a letter this week, and I believe there's one copy over there from Gavin and Kayla Wagner regarding a variation they would like on a building that they bought a permit to build. And they are proceeding now through the process, and next council meeting on the 14th, I believe it is, we will have an open public hearing on that. And we will send out letters to the people within 300 feet of them. Their request for a variation, did that letter make it over there to you?
Yes.
Was the different than in a sidewall height? The building fell within the 24 feet height limit. Just the sidewalls are higher on a pole building. So they're requesting a variance, and that will come up on the 14th.
So what action do we need, Mr. Mayor? What action do we need
I don't think we
tonight?
need any at this moment. They requested it, and according to our paperwork here, we have 14 days to respond to that, which I already responded to them, that we put them on the list, and that I will take care of putting it in the paper. They're gonna provide us with the list of people to send the notices to, who are within 300 feet of them, and we'll bring it up at the public hearing. And then it'll be put to you as the council whether you wish to allow a variance for that sidewall height.
I think I'm gonna go up and take a look.
I would imagine Gavin will come in with some information. There's been many buildings of similar type in the town here who have all been granted that variance. And it'll be put to a vote of the council.
Okay.
Okay. Next thing on our list is in reference to the North End Mobile Home Park. I had it took up 2 squares on my agenda here, but they were both submitted to me by the council. One was a vote on the validity of the 2005 North End Mobile Home Park, and I believe the situation there was, is that the transfer or the,
Both. It's actually the next 2 points on the agenda.
would you like to address that issue?
Sure. So I believe Councilman Armand actually first discovered this in the reading of the 2000, or the ordinance as it applies to the 2005 certificate. But there are 2 items that would possibly invalidate the certificate that's currently there. One is that the certificate cannot transfer without the approval of the council. The certificate was given to Gerald Fries, who's deceased, and so technically, if the council was to deny that transfer, they don't have anything from 2005. It would be invalidated. second item is, it says that construction shall not pause for more than, I think it was 180 days, was it? And so there's a question of, and the document, it does not define the word construction. And so what, if construction goes all the way to the modern day of what's continuing to be done, then one could argue that it paused. Another interpretation of that would be to say that the utility stubs and everything went in, and that the underground work, which is when actually things are being constructed, went in within the first year and completed, and now they are moving things onto the property, which is not construction. In the absence of a definition in the document, there is some interpretation as to whether that certificate would still be valid under the consideration of it being paused for 180 days. So, for the Freezes to walk out of the room tonight with a valid certificate for building what was granted to them by the council in 2005, the council would need to give them vote yes to give them a transfer from Gerald to Mike, Virginia. And second of all, they would need to say that that construction did not pause, that it was completed in the first year. If the council votes yes on both of those items, then the 2005 certificate is valid. The expansion that we talked about a few weeks ago was not approved, and they can reapply for that, but they would walk out with a valid certificate to do what was done in 2005.
So as I understand it, there's two questions, and the first one that I have here on my agenda for validity is actually referring to question number 1 on the line below it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
To that end, I would move that the council give a transference of the certificate from Gerald Freeze to Mike and Virginia Freeze.
Second.
So we got a motion on the floor. Do you want to handle these two separately?
Yes.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second to approve the transfer from Gerald to Mike in Virginia. Any further discussion?
None
All
here.
in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, that's 5-0. Very good, council. Question number 2, stipulate to the construction completed and without any pauses.
I'd like to answer this one. I will confess I have just reread what is sentence 2 under this condition, which caused this concern. It says construction pursuant to the certificate shall commence within 1 year of issuance.
Which it did.
Doesn't say about complete.
No, it's in 3.
No, that's not being suspended.
Right.
Shall not be suspended for a year. So are we answering 2 or 3?
3.
3, okay.
Yeah, because they
Withdraw.
Yeah, because they said that it started within a year. The utilities went in within a year, so
Okay.
point 2 is fine. Yeah.
Okay. I misunderstood the point, so. Okay, continue.
So I move that the council stipulates the construction of the mobile home park at North End, Barrington, completed within a period of 1 year.
Second.
So we got a motion on the floor that the construction did start and was finished within that period. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same? Motion carries 5-0. Sounds to me like the mobile home park is ready to move forward with the 3 units, unless anybody can tell me why not. Okay? I would like to enter another document into that group of paperwork that I have here. I've got a letter from the fire chief of District 6. It says, I have examined the site at the north end of Mobile Home Park, and I have determined that the property is adequately accessible to our emergency equipment in case of fire or medical needs. Signed by Scotty McGowan. So there was questions about access, ability to with the fire department.
And I believe that was my question, and I'm satisfied.
Okay? Well, unless there's any other discussion about that, we're gonna move on to the next item on the list.
I have a question. When can we submit a reapplication? Because I have some papers,
I didn't catch that part.
For the fourth mobile home.
a reapplication.
Okay?
Can we submit that tonight, or do we need to
I
wait
don't know
for
why
next
not.
time?
I-
Okay. So we have a letter. I don't know if you want to have that first.
You bet.
That's pretty simple.
And here's some copies. That's what was lacking before. And
There's the color crayon.
okay, well, there is color. That's the black and white.
I wasn't really making fun of it.
So it says the owners of the North End Mobile Home Park, Mike and
This is gonna
Virginia
have to be as
Freeze,
close as we can get on that.
I'm just,
are requesting an expansion of one more mobile home space to the existing 3 permitted. Sincerely, Virginia
those are all
Freeze.
just copies, may I have them?
And then there's a smaller one.
Is this a new one to replace my old one? Or is this
Yes.
only for the one unit?
Oh, no, this is all
And then
new.
there's for
Okay.
the shopping and
And
all
does
the other
this whole
things that
show
we
the whole
haven't had
site?
Oh, okay.
Much more of it.
Than the other one
Yeah,
did?
the street, the egress and egress and and your inspector has observed the plan and he says he loves it.
Are the inspector in
Ryan.
Davenport?
Yeah,
Yes.
Ryan.
Yep. Did you ever ask
Right
him
here.
about his feelings on what you call a set, I believe? Yeah?
Yeah, we're fine.
Yeah?
And,
And that's gonna be
In a
a-
mobile home park.
yes.
That, yeah, that's
Yeah.
gonna be pylons or pier blocks.
Yeah,
whatever
that's
they
your
call
blocks.
those, yeah. And the question that we thought we had, we'd run into a difficulty with the setback. He explained the wording to me, and we're fine. There is no
Well,
problem.
We had a little bit of bad information because we were told that was a 100-foot street
Yeah,
and it's only 80.
yeah.
So if you do the math, it actually comes out the same for the
But I haven't.
the requirements for Lincoln County is that you take half of the street width, which is 40 feet, because it's 80-foot street, plus 10 feet.
Yeah.
And that puts us smack at 50 feet, which is pretty much where we were looking and asking anyway.
And I had him explain it to me 3 times because I wanted to make sure.
And so with that new information for Joe, I went out
Yes.
and measured. Now, Standard Oil, built, you better believe they surveyed everything when they put their concrete down. So I thought, well, let's measure. So I went out and I measured 40 feet plus 10 feet. Came to 1 3/4 inches within where the concrete slab ends from where Standard Oil built 50 years ago. So it's still pretty accurate. And I think we can reasonably just go with that. And that's what Ryan has assured us, that's what they do.
And he says that sometimes they have a 8-inch, kind of, you don't have to be exact, it can be within that because of different roads or different sizes and streets and all that. So he says that's the standard that they go by.
Cool.
So,
Go ahead.
do I understand that we're opening a brand-new application tonight then for a...
Well, I thought that's what was required, was a
Yeah, yeah.
reapplication.
And I gotta pull out the thing that, then now you will go through and follow all the parts of 319, 317?
370.
76, okay.
76.
Yep, that is. Okay.
Does that include the public hearing
I was
again, too?
just wondering that myself.
I don't know, I'm gonna have to rethink now
Yeah, I
where
think-
we're at.
I think
I
that
think
does.
there's, I gotta sit here and go through the whole thing again and
Let's see that.
Now we're- Huh?
Sorry.
Well, that's okay. It's much easier now. We've done this before. And we don't, I mean, there's a whole lot of hurdles here that we don't have to cross anymore.
Stephen, did you want the one with the?
I was just.
About my
trying to
only
get rid of
concern
my
at this
copy here.
moment is, are we on any kind of a time frame here?
Not
Well, we're
bad.
gonna be.
It's,
Grandma's still coming.
okay.
Well, but
But I mean, from our point of view, I'm not holding you up in the next couple of weeks here for anything on
No,
this.
we were able to get permits. When I talked with Ryan, he explained those things to me. And I went home, talked with Mike, and then we were able to get the second permit, but now we want to have that fourth home.
So this one here, it seems to me, we've got to go through, and I don't know how much time we have here. Got to sit and go through this application process. And then the city will get back to you and say they either approve or, so do you have any problem with the next meeting is 30 days? Enough time for us? March or June 14th?
Yeah.
Yep, June 14th is the next meeting.
That's enough time to call the public.
Now,
think
is
you
that
only
a
need
time?
14
Yeah, we
days,
would have
wasn't it?
2 public meetings at that, so,
We could have, put it back because we don't have that fourth trailer yet. We just want to be able to have one.
okay?
And since.
We've got a lot of work to do
since
with
we-
3.
Yeah, because the deal that we
eventually-
made for the one, and we want it to be a little bit newer, so we were able to unload the other one.
So theoretically, this is a request to expand the mobile home park.
That's right.
Correct,
That's
for the
correct.
record. Is it gonna be, I didn't see it on here, but is it gonna be still within lot 4 or 5?
Yes,
No bigger than
Yeah, okay.
what the
dimensions
map
there.
shows. Well, they're all 4 there.
yeah,
There's the.
All 4 of them are
Yeah.
in the plan.
and this is the width in feet,
Okay.
140 by,
So-
Another copy.
The 14 foot, just for my own knowledge here, 14 foot and a 12 foot wide. What's a double wide considered?
oh,
This one says
Well,
14.
double wides are all over
Yeah.
the board.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
could be anywhere 20, 24.
and we tried to use.
It's either 212s or
since we don't
214s or
have that
216s
trailer yet,
now. The triple
We try to
wides,
get as, just the bigger
Then there's-
dimensions, so if it ends up
all the way
being
from
smaller,
40 to 60
we figured
feet.
that would
that
be
I've
covered.
seen.
Okay.
My thought on putting it on the 14th is if we're already calling for a public meeting,
Yes?
it's, quite honestly, it's less expense and advertising and putting it in the newsletter and all the rest of it. Just,
To have 2 public meetings?
well, one public meeting addressing 2 concerns.
Yeah, I quite frankly, I don't see them. The last one took about 15 minutes and we had 3 people,
Yeah.
so I don't see that being a huge issue. Okay?
Myself individually, I'd prefer to just, since we're doing one already, let's just get it all put in there. Do it
So
all
I know
once.
there was at least 2 council people who had approached me of what I thought of making any amendments to our ordinance 376 regarding mobile homes. And it was my opinion that we could do nothing while this was going on.
Of course.
Now,
There was-
this one's settled, so I must tell you, there has been interest in changing our, and it hasn't been put into law yet or anything, or any ordinances, but there's thoughts, so.
Yeah, I dislike changing ordinances in the midst of
Oh, absolutely.
issue that stinks. No matter
Absolutely.
which way you go, it stinks of something to somebody.
Yes, it does, which is why nothing happened to this point.
But I agree wholeheartedly. Once this is settled, then this is yet another ordinance that needs to be reviewed and
That may need to be amended since it was from years ago, so. There could be changes
City's
made
copy.
to that before
I don't-
next time, that's possible.
That the city.
so.
Okay, I think we're done at this point then.
Phew. Congratulations.
Go forth and conquer.
We shall.
The chutes are greased.
Yes.
See you in 3 weeks.
Oh,
Okay, guys.
I kind of need to write that down with the meeting.
June 14th?
Yeah. And I don't think I brought a pen, so I'm gonna go over here and see if I can borrow a pencil.
You're more than welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting also, if you'd like.
You know, I've seen a couple of meetings and they're not all that entertaining. Well, actually,
Yes, it was, Mike.
I'm crushed, Mike.
We'll try harder.
Could I borrow a pen, please,
Absolutely.
so I can write down that date? And you said it was
It is
June?
June,
14th.
Well, we're almost to the
June
end.
14th is the next one.
Thanks.
So that agenda's gonna start filling up here for June
Seven.
14th. And I would think that'll be 7 o'clock again, but maybe we'll start it earlier if it, for those
Oh,
calendars.
Wednesdays are pretty open for us. And
Oh, it has been.
whenever you want to start, you can do it.
So, are we ready?
I think so. I'm trying to think if I had any questions. And
Any?
I think we're just done till we see you again.
Okay,
And we appreciate
Well-
it, thank you.
I think we're just starting.
Been a
Yeah,
long day.
yeah, we are. He likes to fool himself sometimes.
Have a good night.
Good night, folks.
Next item on the agenda is the clerk's report.
60, it's 40.
This is a, huh? Yes?
That seems
Amend ordinance 130.
thing.
Oh, sorry about that, sorry. I was getting ahead of myself here. Yes. We have talked about this many times. And we haven't gotten to it, but the amending of ordinance 130. The first thing I would like to say about that is I talked to Norm this week at the auditor's office, and Norm said that this position will be open again for 3 days in July and several times throughout the year. Anytime it's vacant there and we haven't had a elected official, that will keep coming up. Although it was not up for election during this cycle, other than the fact that there was nobody elected.
It was appointed.
And the reason being is per what I dug out of the archives here about 130. Hopefully you've all read that now? Yeah? Our lawyer, does anybody have any of the documentation that he had written to begin with about this? Yeah?
Yes.
And he also sent his thought of what a new ordinance might look like. I sent that out to you all this afternoon. There was things on it that I didn't think quite met all of our needs, but I guess
So, Norm, is that to say that he doesn't care, just FYI, it's gonna show up?
Norm, yes, it will, and Norm said if you pass anything, the sooner you bring it to me, I will take it off my backpack. And he said my backpack holds several hundred straws, and that will be a straw off my back. I will no longer have to do that.
Okay.
He said, if you want to do it or don't do it, it doesn't matter to me. But it's just one of the things I get paid to do. And he said, I will do it again. And he talked about it was coming up in July, that it would be proposed again for 3 days. Is that for
Yes.
the park?
Yes.
I didn't get a chance to look at that. Did that look
I sent it online digitally.
good? So Norm said it didn't matter to him either way.
Okay.
But all we would need to do is let him know that we had changed or amended our ordinance and that he would respond to that, whichever way that was.
Perfect.
So I guess my last concern, that was one of two. Then my last one is, because this ordinance, at least the one that is being proposed, says that it goes into effect immediately. So if we vote on this and we approve this, then we walk out of here with no treasurer. And I just want to make sure that the access that Sage currently has is not by virtue of her position, it's by virtue of her name. Because if we walk out of here with Harrington not having a treasurer, we don't know what we don't know, but are we relatively sure here that she can still execute things in her capacity, or Donna and Cynthia can take over everything such that we have continuity?
So I think I have concern about one of those questions. I yesterday left her a pretty lengthy phone message and did not get a response yesterday about it. I asked her to come in last night if she could after work. Monday and Tuesday are her 2 nights that she's free usually. And to have a discussion with me, and Donna and I and Cynthia all had questions here that we wanted to ask her, you know. Number one was, do you wish to continue with handling this job till the end of the year? Because if the council votes to do away with the job as an elected position, you know, we would still give her the opportunity to do that. Probably another 6 months and 5 months. And I heard nothing from her about that, and so I can't answer that. I just didn't get a response yesterday. And the next question was will you come in and do the checks? Will you work in this audit? And we got no response. So that's where we're at the moment. I'm hoping that we would still get a chance to talk to her, and that we would probably utilize her services at least for another month or so. Our number one concern, one of our number one concerns is transferring money from 6629 to 6921 is the in account to 6368. That's the out account. So when we put money in the bank, those funds need to be transferred from one account to the other, from the in account to the payable account. And at the present time, she is the only one that does that.
I thought we got into single point for you.
We are into single point. I got that squared away through their commercial account. So I can't tell you, now I need to get on and call and talk to those people again and see if we have that ability through single point.
Okay.
So we still got a few more ducks to get lined up.
So what I'm hearing is this is probably not an action we're gonna take tonight.
Well, I don't know if you can take the action tonight, but I don't think you would say that the position is eliminated tonight. Whether you want to remove it from the election cycle is something that possibly you can do. I would think you could possibly do, maybe not.
Eliminate that position from being elected.
Maybe, yes, move that from an elected position, so then we deal with if we can gain her help for whatever period we decide with the office staff needed to make the transition.
I think theoretically she's still obligated, or for lack of better words, till the end of, December 31st.
Yeah, I think there might have been some mistakes made when we gave her that position. We thought that the term was up in November, but according to the paperwork here on 130, it was not up in November. That's not on the November.
Well, when you fill a position, you immediately come up for election at the next possible election, like what's happening with Joe Gilchrist. So it doesn't really matter when the regular election cycle would be. Like, Joe Gilchrist would be elected next year, but because she was appointed into Mark's position, she has to re-up at the next possible election, and then next year she's going to have to run again.
Okay.
Just like Chris is doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Chris would have to file, and
Well, Chris is actually,
Or not Chris,
you
excuse
happen
me.
to be on cycle too, because yours online says short and
Because it was Peter's
And
position, right?
full, yeah.
in 130 is also the council people. But there's also another stipulation in there if you're filling someone else's position, but wasn't Peter's position up for re-election this
Yes.
year?
Yeah.
Yes, so you did sign up.
Yes.
You're running again, yeah. So are you speaking about the about the ordinance that David Bingaman wrote now?
That's what I'm looking at.
That's the one you're looking at, yeah. You know, whether that can be tweaked or whether you agree with everything. I can't say that I agreed with everything that he had for duties or,
What were your concerns?
well,
I want to know what ordinance 320 is.
130, you mean?
320.
No, the
Oh.
repealer B.
Tell you what, you guys keep going. I should be able to dig it out.
Is it a typo?
Well, let me find out.
The second half of the sentence implies it's probably to do with the salary of the treasurer, but it could have other things in it as well.
So if I dig out the one from David Bingaman, that's the one I'm struggling with right
No,
now.
no, this is David Bingaman's, if anybody wants to.
There's 7 pages and it was only, my computer only received 2 of the 7.
Of the one from David?
The one that you sent here,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Well, it looks like it's
It's
I
just
see what you mean.
back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just a different
Because at the
font.
bottom of this, it says 2 of 7.
Oh.
so
But it
that's
does,
the
it
main.
looks like at the end.
Yeah. Maybe he forgot to update that on his
Yeah.
Word.
Well, I just had a question with 230. I don't remember.
Let me see if I can find it for you,
Excuse
Dave.
me, 320.
320, okay.
Golly.
Let me try to
Okay,
find it.
so, that was sent, back on 22, was it?
It's just section 3 of ordinance 130.
17, 18, 19.
I think
Harrington, take a look at this, City Hall.
under, yeah.
When is the last time Sage, Miss Wilson, was on site or did any
She was here Monday
treasure
night,
business work?
Monday night,
99.
not last night, night before. Yeah, she came and printed checks.
Okay.
David Bingaman, I just attached the draft of the ordinance. So you guys don't have a total draft of that ordinance, is that correct?
Well, we may, but David was pointing out that the footer says page 2 of 7, but the content appears to be
No,
complete.
there's only 2 pages.
Okay.
So my things, the parts that I was interested in was under section 4 about the authorities, duty, qualifications, and salary. That the clerk shall include accepting land use applications. I don't know where he got all of these particular things, and although those may be,
Joe had posed a similar question to me earlier when we were discussing this, and I said, my interpretation of it, not that I'm a lawyer, but what our relationship, if the concern is the relationship with the county, with the permitting and what we've recently looked at with the Wagner situation, we contracted our permitting and inspections out to the county, but applications are not an inspection, and applications are not necessarily a permit. In fact, perhaps having the clerk treasurer accept the land use applications is actually the correct entry point we're looking for, because we never ceded the authority, well, except we don't know what's in Exhibit A, but I don't believe we ceded our authority of our ordinances to the county. Therefore, if a person comes in, accepts a land use permit, then we can provide the ordinances that they're accountable to, and then refer them to the county for the permitting and the inspection process, which would have hopefully not put us in the position that we were in with this most recent issue. If we continue to contract services with the county, we will need some type of a touch point for someone in Harrington to actually inform our citizens about the ordinances that they're accountable to. So perhaps the acceptance of a land use permit is that touch point. Lastly, I think the contract that we have with the county says that we take, well, I'd have to double check it, but there's a split, a 75-25% split of the fees, and I think we pay the county, not the other way around. We pay them 75% of it and keep 25% for ourselves. So we should be, unless that's reversed and I'm not remembering it correctly, that should be the point at which we would accept the money for the permitting process as well.
Here is that copy if you wish to look at it.
Oh, thank you.
It's the front few pages there.
Yep. 3, consideration. As for consideration, the city hereby agrees to pay the county on a monthly basis 75% of any and all gross revenues generated from building permits and plan review fees collected. So if we're going to be able to pay that 75% to the county, of which we keep 25% for ourselves, there would need to be an application or some type of a touch point with the person coming in to do the land use permit. So. Which actually, the more I think about it, I thought I had overheard Gavin say that he paid a fee to the county,
He did.
which means that per our agreement, they shouldn't have been the one to accept that money. We should have accepted that money and paid the county 75% of it.
That would only be if we issued the building permit, but the county's issuing the building
No,
permit.
this is that agreement. It says that we take the money and we pay them for the services.
In City Ordinance 503, and if you look under services as well,
So because they accepted that money, they owe us 25% of it.
Yeah, that's true.
in providing such services, the county building inspector may exercise powers to perform all duties vested by law in the city. So, referencing this city, they should have enforced or been aware of our municipal codes.
And I think they look at it and say they're not having anything to do with our municipal codes.
Well, these are
Yeah,
just-
this document is rather hard to understand.
Well, it's not complete in its entirety, what it says in here, but it's implied, and then it's written one way and implied another. And that's why these documents going forward are so critical, because people forget what's implied. You get a different counsel, you
Yeah.
lose all intent.
I don't see 320 in here.
So that must be a typo.
Yeah, he's gonna have to make sure he's got the right one, because I'm going through the list of ordinances in order, and unfortunately, our list is incomplete. We go from...
320 for where? Oh, from Bingaman?
Yes.
According to
Oh, do you know what 320 is?
They said we were up to date.
I would just about be willing to bet to you that 320 is in here. It's back in that book and not recorded. I went through that book, every one of them, and found about 20 references for many years there, and every one of those references was to increase a fund there
Okay.
for a wage. And I think 320 was just one of those.
Okay. Then we probably need to find it, because the list that I got from the...
320 was in 1990, and that's nothing but to increase the treasurer's wages.
That's an ordinance?
I can get out Noah's book back there if you want to see it. Every one of these, 208, 218,
Resolution.
233, 45, 54,
Yeah,
61, 73.
my
Those
list
are
is-
all,
Yeah, my list is going from 319
yeah,
and then skips to 329.
320, oh, 320 is the last one. Would you like to see any of those? And those are all amendments?
So far as you know, Mr. Mayor, that 320 is about the treasurer.
It's about the treasurer's
Okay.
salary is
So,
all it
okay.
is.
So repeal it, when it says here, this ordinance repeals the new one.
All of those, and he
Ordinance.
went from 329, that's in there too. Yeah, I can grab that book if you want to see one of them. Just, here's the list I went through when I started at the back of the Bible there.
Okay.
And the treasurer's salary started off at $165 a month and ended up at $320 in 1990 at $235.62. And every year Paul signed a amendment to increase the treasurer's salary.
Okay, so for the sake of our argument of this document, that's
Okay.
what is impressive to get verified.
Okay?
I've been focusing more on some of the stuff that you talked, some of the clarifications of it, I think we need to get cleaned up. I don't believe requiring an associate's degree
Yeah, that there again.
is, I know too many people without a degree of any time that are more than capable of handling bookkeeping. So,
That was my concern about this, was some of the descriptions of requirements that he put down. I don't think we've had a person with those positional requirements.
so I guess my question is this the document to necessarily redefine everything the clerk is doing? Or just adding,
Well,
because I don't think we have enough paper to define what our clerks do.
I can show you a list, Donna could show you a list that has been started compiling some of the clerks' role around here.
I think it would
It's
be
been added to daily, and it's,
humbling.
well, it's 3 columns of 1 page right now.
Like I said, we don't have enough paper.
Yeah, yeah, this was not the perfect thing, this one that David put together, our attorney.
who were we talking? Was it David that had told us, someone, we were in a meeting, was advising us that things like rate schedules should be in separate documents as exhibits?
Absolutely.
And it would seem to me like the duties of a clerk treasurer should not be put into an ordinance itself, because those duties could be changed without having to amend. Because I believe that same person said that a exhibit could be changed and updated, like a rate schedule can be changed by resolution instead of ordinance.
Right.
I mean, kind of tomato, but it would just seem like it'd be easier to put the long list, comma-separated list of things in an easier to change manner.
In a job description somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes. Not so much in the,
Not
not
in
so much in
ordinance.
the ordinance that says whether it's an elected position or a hired position, a full-time.
Right.
So I guess this isn't the document for tonight, but I would propose that we would look towards and I'm just throwing this out there as a point to shoot at, an effective date of July 1st. Or should it be moved up?
So is it possible you wanna make an amendment to ordinance 130? To change only section 3 here of 130, elected office shall be the mayor, 5 councilmen, and the treasurer each. Is it possible to only make a change and remove the word treasurer from 130?
Well, no, because you have to specifically list some ordinances as repealed,
Okay,
which is, I think, why David started it off with that section 1 on repealer, because otherwise you would have ordinances that would still technically be active for a position that no longer exists.
okay.
And there's many problems with 190, just, I mean, the election date. Back at the time it was written, it implies.
With 130? Yeah, but it's June.
Yeah, but it's June. And
Yes.
It's done by the city, and that's obviously been taken over by the state and the county responsibilities, so.
Yeah,
But I think in the interest of getting this processed, working with an amendment is, ordinance is probably the better way to handle this.
We have had nobody apply for the position
Mhm.
for quite some time now. I think Mike stepped up. I don't think he
held over.
wasn't elected. Was he elected?
Well, he was, no.
I think he stepped
no.
in for his wife and he was appointed.
That I don't know.
Not sure, but.
But he
then
held office,
Then
so.
he stayed over for an additional year, I believe.
Yes, because nobody ran, nobody filed for that election, so unless he resigns, he's held over any office.
That's true. Well, there's a couple pieces of this puzzle that we don't have yet.
Well, clearly we need to have a transition because we can't have the funds and the monies of the
Yes.
city held up because of paperwork.
And we haven't 100% sealed the deal with our other bank yet because we have not had a meeting to determine if the person who is there right now wishes to continue or not.
Okay. So that's up in the air. There is one other item, or maybe items, that I don't know, we could probably do it with resolution maybe, or I feel like it should be written into the ordinance, and it's not even addressed here. But in talking, long story short, I got a phone call last week from RMSA with regard to who is the second person in the city that is reconciling or auditing the checkbook every month.
Can you say who RMSA is, please?
Risk management
Okay,
of AWC.
okay.
Well, we don't have that person. So I said any guidance would be great, and they gave me some guidance, but to get all the rest of it down to the button, a person in the city who is not an authorized signer on the accounts should be the second person that it is doing the cross-checking and auditing, if you will, and reconciling the checkbook, so to speak.
Doesn't Springbrook have that, isn't that part of the reason, wouldn't that?
I'm sure the system's in there, but it's
Supposed to
a
help with
matter
that?
of having a second person of eyes looking at the check register and saying, check, 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 check. Wait, what's this? It's just, you always want to have, in a corporate situation, volunteer situation, any nonprofit, you always want to have that second person looking at the books to catch mistakes, and the implication is to make sure that nobody is doing something here. But it's just to put a second set of eyes, and that second set of eyes should be somebody who does not have access to the account.
Wouldn't the majority of that data intersect with what we're approving in council meetings?
Not necessarily, because we're not looking at the bank statement. We're seeing what's presented to us.
Right.
I will give the case an example. The state has automatic withdrawals that they take out of our account.
And I guess what I'm getting at is maybe, I don't know if this counts, but maybe a way to do this is just to have, would it be prohibitive in terms of the work involved to, as a part of our approval of the claims and the check register, to approve that as a council? If it's not the same information we're already seeing, I don't know that I would mind seeing that. And that our council would be benefited by generally knowing where that money is going.
Are you talking about just getting hands on that computer and making sure everything cross-checks and
bank statements.
everything?
Because the bank statement is one set of documents that's real-life true numbers that are coming in and out of our account. Now, we're looking at data that's coming in, and I have no reason to question it, but what if there was a check that wasn't in here that we don't see as part of our claims, but the bank statement knows it because it went out the door?
Well, prior, the treasurer, the clerk, and the mayor had access to all that, so what does our MSA or whatever
They
propose?
just want somebody who does not have the ability to sign for the account, hypothetically is independent but responsible to the city. Only person, the bottom line, the way they described it, the only people, when this is all said and done, that I can think of is one of the five, one of the council. Should be tasked with looking at the bank statements and checking them off against claims and if need be, going through what Springbrook to make sure that everything that's coming out that we are seeing as council matches what is coming out on the bank statement.
So I think I asked you this today earlier. Does MSA or RSA have the authority to make us do something like that? Is this a
Requirement.
is this a requirement through the state or somebody else?
If we were to have a crime claim,
Okay,
the deductible that they would assign us goes up significantly.
so this is our insurance agent that's...
Basically, our insurance, the risk management is the insurance, and they're the ones saying that, and it's good practice. As you look at anybody that does this, it's good practice.
Yeah.
And although, no, I will rephrase this. If we don't have somebody in the city, because we just don't have enough people, we can outsource it. Basically, we're hiring
Hiring somebody to do it, third
Laurel
party.
to come in and do a third-party review once a month.
Sure.
To back check us.
It sounds good and stuff, but these resources in this town city has worked for years. And with the computer systems, what I understand of Springbrook and having 2 clerks and stuff, and a mayor, I think we're over-engineering the whole situation. That would mean everybody would have to be a crook. They'd all have to be all in cahoots and stealing money, let's say, a claim. And I just don't think that'll ever happen. For one, Springbrook will catch that, for one. You'd have to be a real slickster. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I don't know. I think we're just trying to over-engineer something and muddle up another requirement that I don't think is necessary. I personally don't think is necessary at this time.
Okay,
I will say this, having seen some of these claims come through in my professional life, and then just in general looking at some of the other and hearing about some of the other cases that this has come up, and I'm absolutely not implying anybody in this room or in this organization at all.
sure.
But when they find that it wasn't one time, it was a little bit over a long period of time, and it ended up becoming a big deal. And at the end of the day, everyone says, I can't believe that happened. I would have never expected that person to do that. And then everyone was sitting there like going, well, gee, if we just had a second person looking at the books, even spot checking, it would just...
I think those
get a
situations happened in 2 of our fellow cities here. But I know our clerk would like to speak for a second. Do you have something pertinent to this?
Yes, I would like to just add, this could help the situation, is that we have the ability to print out a reconciliation report and a treasurer's report that can be taken by the council and compared to the claims. And those reconciliation reports are printed out as soon as it's balanced, and those can be provided.
So you can each month after the reconciliation is done, print out a report and somebody can just go through and check these. Just about
And
it.
the bank statement.
On the bank statement.
Is that roughly the size of the check register? Is it
The size, you know,
just like how many pages does that end up?
January was about 3 or 4 pages per account.
I will say this, when we get to a single account, this becomes exponentially easier.
It sounds like Springbrook will create the report that you want, and somebody could be designated that for...
And we could designate the whole council as being responsible to periodically do what you just said.
That was my
Yeah.
point. But if it's to one person, I'll volunteer to do it versus having it go out to a third party. But Joe, weren't you mentioning that in you doing one instance of this is when you found out about a retirement system?
Yeah, again, nothing sinister, but we all sat here for a year approving claims, and they all matched up on the check register, but when I was looking at the check register, there's monies that are coming out automatically, going to the state, and we never saw those. We never knew that they were going out the door. And it took me some digging and some asking some questions when I found out, oh yeah, that's our retirement system that we pay into with the state for our full-time employees that quite honestly a lot of us never knew anything about. So all legit, all above board, but when we're looking at the monies that are coming in and the monies that are going out, those are the kind of numbers that we should be reconciling in our heads.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying, is I think it fits in the same space as why we see the check register, because technically, if I understand this correctly, we only need to be looking at the claims. We could decide we don't want to see the check register anymore, because the check register is only the follow-up of what we approved from claims last time. So really, this is just kind of a little bit of an extension and evolution of the check register, is just that verification point that what we approved earlier is the complete picture that we're seeing next meeting over. But
Just for clarification, I'll say it before we lose content here. I'm against singling out one or two people in council diving into the books to this degree when the other council members are not apprised to it, for one. I think we lose touch as a council embodiment. And for his information, it's out of the realm of a councilman to do that, to a degree, in my opinion. So I would strongly suggest that we don't volunteer. I think between the two ladies or whomever and the mayor and Lef Oldus and Warwick, I think there's plenty of oversight. I think we're trying to make something go down a rabbit hole here that is nonsense at the moment. Trying to muddle things up more. And going back in history, I called out several times. How many times in the last year or prior to the last year did we just sit there and rubber stamp everything until it dawned on me the checks weren't lined up, this wasn't going, and I called it out. And it's who we had doing what we were doing, whether it be a training issue or whatever. But I think we're past that, and with the computer, it catches a lot of stuff. You got to reconcile every day or every week, and it'll catch stuff like that. So like I said, you'd have to have more than one, you'd have to have multiple people in on the scheme to pull the wool over on people. And I said my piece.
Okay.
I think I only want to add one point to that. As far as the retirement, the Department of Retirement Services, DRS, is that correct, Donna?
Yes.
I know Donna spent probably the first 3 weeks she was here going through that, and then probably another week with one of those individuals getting that particular system updated and everything reconciled, because there was many things in there that were not entered in the manner that the state requires. And it's also a very difficult system to understand. It's not straightforward and user-friendly by any means, but so
maybe a clerical error is what it caused it before?
I don't want to begin to make any kind of an
Logistics.
assertion as to how they happened, but there was many errors in there. And they have been brought up to with a couple of those people who are very good with their, of course they understand that system with the state. And ours is, Donna spent a good 2 to 3 weeks there going through that. And that was quite the ordeal. That was the first one, I think. But there is some validity in checking this stuff.
Most
But it sounds to me like we can spit out a report. I don't know if that will satisfy them or not.
I'll have to reread their deal. But I will tell you this, in the absence of having somebody double checking,
Yeah?
our deductible goes up significantly. That's just the quick summary of it. Now, the deductible implies that there was a claim. If we don't have a claim, we don't have to worry about it, so we could approach it that way.
This sounds like something we need to follow up with anyway.
Yeah.
It's,
But again, I don't know if it belongs in this specific ordinance, something to this effect, or we just leave that out and have that just part of the practices of the office.
so we're talking about 130 still?
No, I'm talking about, are we adding it to this change?
Yeah.
The clerk, and there's a sec,
I don't think we
you
will.
don't think it needs to go in there? Okay.
Just because if this is about the treasurer role and they couldn't do the thing that MRSA wants us to do, then this wouldn't be pertinent to
Yeah,
that.
and what I read, RMSA is not telling us that we have to have an ordinance that dictates this, or even a resolution for that matter.
That would fall more under job description.
Very much so.
So what kind of items for further discussion and planning are falling out of this particular one then with changing 130? Is there something we can document, start putting a list together of what we really
Setting an
need?
effective date in the future, whatever that might be,
Yeah.
instead of immediately effective.
Coordinating that with Sage.
Yeah, striking the education requirement and moving the job description out into referencing some kind of a separate exhibit, or the job descriptions that we're looking to make for our roles, or the handbook or something, but not keeping the list in the ordinance itself.
So is this something you think we could do in a work session
Yeah, I would think so.
when the whole council can be here to get involved in it?
Yeah.
I will take on the situation with dealing with the current treasurer. I will get together with her and ascertain her feelings on whether she wants to continue forward with this or not, and I'll get to the bottom of that part of it. And then it sounds to me like we need to have a work session where we can get together and really hammer out some more of these issues.
I don't think it'll take too long if we come in with the right inputs.
Yeah.
And perhaps the biggest sticking point will be, would we have a job description finalized? Because if we want to abstract the list of job description from this ordinance and reference another document, we can't reference another document that's not created right now.
Is there any reason why we can't edit this?
Oh yeah, we can
document here?
edit it. I'm just saying, I don't know what all,
Yeah.
you referenced that there's already a list being put together and stuff. We would have to put together, maybe the work session will, I think this ordinance will go in like 10 minutes after maybe the majority of the work session is about actually finally approving clerk job description.
And that might not be done for a couple months here still.
Well, then I guess we'd be better off to just leave the job description in the ordinance then.
Or we refer to the job ordinance, or the job description in the employee handbook, which can be amended.
By resolution. I'd have to, I'd have to look at what the job description of the clerk is in the work handbook.
We got a RCW mentioned in here.
That he references.
Yeah, but doesn't have a number, so
Oh yeah, interesting. If an RCW provision referenced herein is later amended, this ordinance, or it'll adopt that RCW, but I didn't see any RCWs referred to previously in this whole. Oh, such as authority and duties as may be set by the RCW ordinance resolution and designation by the mayor.
yeah. We gotta love attorneys.
Well, that's
We
right
love
there is a pretty broad
It is.
sweeping statement.
Pretty big brush.
Yeah. Basically, it says that the mayor can make any kind of duties.
Delegation.
We left out the R. ATTORNY.
Well, that
Maybe
would
that
make
was on
it,
purpose.
yeah.
It was already hit.
I think when it describes the authority, the duties, qualifications, that gets more into our handbook. And when Stephen, myself, and Nathan worked on it, for the life of me, I couldn't figure out why our old language, years back, kept referencing city, clerk treasurer, clerk/treasurer, okay? And it didn't, at the time, it's geared up for one person, is what the deal is. And we are used to a clerk person and a treasurer person. So in our handbook, it's going to have to, and I think it does kind of reference that without looking at it right now.
So it was probably adopted from someplace else.
Right. But essentially, I think council has to technically create that clerk treasurer's position.
I guess.
You know what I mean, Stephen?
Yeah, I guess
Theoretically.
I see what you're saying, and that's a valid interpretation. In this document, I guess I wouldn't reference it the way he says clerk treasurer. I just say clerk and say you're giving the responsibilities of treasurer to the clerk, and you're putting it as part of their responsibilities. Therefore, I wouldn't say that it really changes the position inherently. It's just an expansion of the role and responsibility. But I guess to your point, if this ordinance says clerk treasurer, and that's not a position that the city has, then that makes for more issues than if you just have a clerk who has treasurer responsibilities.
Just about every city municipality refers to it as a clerk treasurer. I have to believe
They
being
do.
a municipality that there might be some regulations where you have to have a designated treasurer. The banking, they have a specific banking laws with regard to dealing with municipalities, so we'll have to check it out. But I'm pretty sure that the term treasurer is a title that is bestowed on somebody with purpose.
And then I'll throw another ringer at you. A lot of them use deputy clerk. And yeah, terminology. You gotta love it, guys. Because we don't have a position right now. Not that I'm against it, I'm all for it, but we don't have a position for two clerks.
Yeah,
So
we do.
Yes,
we opened
we
it in January.
officially in our book.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
voted on it.
Would you like to see that?
Yeah, Mike, was it referenced? Clerk?
Yes, it was, and
Okay.
but that doesn't mean that
Thank
the
you.
name can't change
Right.
to protect the innocent.
Right.
As
Okay.
close as we get. I
So
don't
at the
think
present
handbook
moment,
has
we're
a-
working with that situation, David.
So
But we got over that in the office here. As an office, we're not focusing on the name as much as getting the job done.
oh, I'm all for it.
And we're creating those two positions right now. And could they be called different names? It would probably make it easier for our minds to think of.
Would it clear it up going forward is all I'm looking at.
Probably. But that became such an issue that we just kind of wiped that out. We've got a job here to accomplish first. And we'll worry about the names later.
So the handbook does not contain a job description.
For the
The
treasurer.
clerk, or really anyone.
Because the treasurer wouldn't, because it's an elected
Right.
position.
There are a few things that it says the clerk shall do, like maintain personnel records and that
Yeah.
kind of things. But
Yeah.
that's not a full job description. This is just saying, as part of everything they do, there's some things that the handbook specifies they will do, but there's no job description in there.
And I think currently we lack job descriptions for everything.
Uniformly across the board.
No.
We keep talking about that for last year, we'll just get sidetracked.
As a business guy, I inherently hate job descriptions because I never want to hear somebody tell me that's not my job description.
Yeah, I don't care for that either.
Totally get that too.
But I think for the purposes of a municipality, we may not have that luxury.
That's why they put that sentence in there, perform other job duties as,
As a
Delegated by the mayor.
It's a struggle for me not to have an org chart. A very simple org chart.
For the same reason.
Yeah. This person is the top. These three answer to this person, and just without an org chart, it's a struggle.
Well, right or wrong, people inherently want to know what the pecking order is.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think we can probably do better with our time to figure out what we want to do here. It sounds like a work session.
I would agree.
And going forward in the future here, we've got one more Wednesday in this month, which is next Wednesday. Seems to me, is that a holiday? This
Monday would be.
Monday is a holiday, so that makes next week kind of a wonky. Yeah, I don't know. We go to that would be the 31st. Then we go to the first Wednesday in the month, that's the 7th. The next one would be the 14th, which is when we're doing our public hearing. So we're pretty much out of
Options there.
yeah, unless we go to we wait all the way till the second Wednesday of June. That's 30 days off from now.
I don't think we have that luxury. I think there's things coming up audit-wise that
Maybe pound it out.
Yeah, there's a few things that have to get.
Okay, so can we just, if we left the job description in, which isn't optimal, but in context of what was just said, it's probably workable, in my opinion. If we can come to an agreement on an effective date and just decide to strike the education requirement, can we just do it tonight?
I don't see any problems with that, Stephen.
Do you want to know about ordinance 320?
Come on, you bugger.
Well, we found, you said that was a budget increase.
Yes, I can show you the old paperwork if you want to. If you want me to dig it up, I'll go grab
I
it.
don't feel compelled. If it just basically said in 1989, this was the wage. set,
Yeah, that's
I don't think that's
every
right.
year almost, and then it got to be 2 years, and those, I'm quite sure, but I could go grab that book and we could dig it up if you find that's necessary.
So if we're going to go forward with this, I agree wholeheartedly. Under section 4, sentence B, the qualification for the associate's degree, we can just strike that. C, the salary of the clerk treasurer will be set through budget ordinance, including any amendments. Isn't that set by the council? I mean, it's set by the council.
By the budget
Approve it.
ordinance.
By the budget ordinance.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay, so we do that. That's not up to the mayor to.
It was
The mayor
in the last
puts the budget
budget.
together and presents it to the council, and
Are you going to strike on part B, the part of being bondable?
My problem with being bondable is I know a little bit about that bond. It's technically not a bond, it's an insurance policy. And it has to do with I have to do this. An employee dishonesty bond, which is what they're referring to, is actually an insurance policy. And what it basically says is this person did a crime, they will reimburse that loss. The bond will, or the insurance policy. I will tell you, the criteria that is required before that payout happens is extremely complicated. And it does involve a full-blown conviction. So just because somebody is accused of doing it doesn't mean you get reimbursed the money that was lost.
court trial dates and
Court trial,
years.
conviction, and conviction, yes.
So on my computer here, this one is enabled for editing. Do we want to edit this?
Well,
Can you do that on yours?
I can do it on mine.
Okay.
That bond too, would it, like all our positions should be bonded. if they did something by mistake, would it prevent the city going back on that employee? That bond?
So this references to basically fiduciary responsibility, is that what you're talking about? I made a mistake and I sent $1,000 out the door by mistake.
Or $400,000 went to so-and-so, or it cost, something they did cost, is a big flub up. And it's very costly. Well, I guess one would be, that $5,000 fine that, we got from the
Nope,
Department of Ecology, dropping the ball
nope.
on something.
Now, you could talk about errors and emissions insurance, but that goes down a whole completely different rabbit hole.
There was nothing ever in this in the past, was there?
What's that, Mr. Mayor?
There was nothing in this from the past, from 1957, that ever had any kind of an insurance policy. Is that a
No.
true statement? So we've been operating for 50 years without one?
Well, it's
60.
like you hire any employee, do not take this personally. Employees make mistakes and they cost companies money.
Of course they do.
That's just part of the learning process.
Yep.
That the company, the city acknowledges that they're hiring the best person and that mistakes are gonna happen, and you do your best to mitigate them and you move on. Big losses, now I will say we've got cyber liability coverage. One of the components of that is somebody gets instructions on how to move money. Oh, the state says I've got to move the money from this account to this account, wire it to this deal because it needs to go out of this account. And they do it and they just send it offshore. That cyber liability takes care of that because it's a fraudulent electronic transfer of money. But a simple mistake, that's force majeure. You hire employees make mistakes and you deal with it.
So you're saying strike that sentence?
I think so. I mean, we could make them bondable, but I just see that as being an added expense to the,
I don't think that we're that big of an organization that you have to worry about somebody being bonded because they're gonna take a certain amount of money. Or for that matter, if there was a computer that was missing or they wheeled a RICO out the door or something like that.
okay. So,
I guess understanding this in the spirit and content in which this is intended to be bondable, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around what he's really getting here, why that's even in there.
Years ago, that sort of stuff was. My job, I had to be bonded for what I did, and I didn't even have any, or didn't even handle any money.
well, your contractor that works on your house has to have a bond. And what is that? It's a financial guarantee that he's gonna do the work that you paid him to do. But in this case, what they're referring to is employee dishonesty, and like I said, technically it's not a bond.
Like you said, it's basically, in a nutshell, insurance.
It is.
Covering,
So
yeah.
the other thing about being bonded for contractors or what have you, one of the things they look at is a person's credit and stability and all the rest of it. It's basically a way to pay for somebody's credit worthiness, if you will. And if you've got good credit, you're less likely to commit some sort of
The
infidelity.
risk, yeah, everything.
So,
Unless you want to get a loan now you need bad credit, right?
Yeah. So you guys pay for it.
so we beat up sentence B enough that we can remove it?
Yeah, just strike it, I think, unless, yeah, like, there's no language in anything else that requires the clerk. And we already have other people taking money and handling money, you know, taking deposits and stuff like that, so get rid of it.
Okay.
I haven't heard from Levi, is he still there?
Levi Shank, do we still have you?
You still got me.
Thank you, sir.
And I would say for, well, after David's point, I'm not sure if you want to call it clerk treasurer right off the bat. We might need to move to that, but I think if we're doing a solution, get something in place now, it might be better to just call it clerk position, and if we need to change it and rename it later, because our handbook refers to clerk, a lot of other things refer to clerk, and if this is the thing that de facto creates that position out of thin air, I don't know if that's the way we want to go about it. We probably want to do a package of ordinances, resolutions, handbook changes in one night where we do a change to say all clerks are now clerk treasurers or whatever, or figure out, can we have multiple people that have the title of clerk treasurer, or can it only technically be one?
I think one of the things to address that, I think it's salary and pay scale kind of dictates that, yes.
Judy's.
To the point. But yes, sure. So we decide on a workshop to get this pounded out?
I think you're trying to get this to the point where you can pass this tonight, was the plan.
Right, but I mean, going forward.
And then going forward and picking up all of the bigger, broader thing, yes.
I can get behind just calling it clerk for tonight until someone tells me otherwise.
So in reading this, everywhere where it references clerk hyphen treasurer, I think if we just change that to specifically clerk, it works.
That's all we do.
There's like 3 areas in that
Well, there's
particular
some that-
paragraph.
there's some
Under
language.
3 and under 4 both.
Under 3,
In the long run, it is probably appropriate for us to change that, but I think it's going to have a lot of implications we can't tackle tonight.
some of the wording is going to be a little bit clunky, but it's still.
Are you reading the printout, or do you see it on the screen? Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was going through and wiping out.
Okay, so using this document going to 7, when it's effective, that's going to be the date that this gets rolled in and implemented. It says the ordinance shall become effective immediately upon its passage, but we can clearly change that and say this will be effective such and such a date.
And it could be sooner or later, depending on what the current treasurer's position is, or current person that's in that position.
May I ask the clerk?
Sure.
If you currently have the role, which I know you're largely doing a lot of already, that you are now responsible, or you and your counterpart are firmly responsible for the treasurer activities, would you be able to be up to speed and be the person by July 1st?
This is May, June.
So basically a month away.
I mean, you're already doing left this, you're already taking deposits, you're already doing banks, I mean, really.
What we're not doing on a regular basis is printing the checks
Yeah.
and moving money from one account to another.
Okay.
So I'm happy to give you as much time as you want. On the flip side of it, are you concerned, how long is too long to wait on an effective date, in your opinion?
The work has to be done now.
Right.
Who tells the treasurer right now when to move money?
So,
Donna does, and at the present time, she's coming in and printing the checks. So when you print the checks, you pretty well know you have to move the money.
Well, we have Cynthia here as well, right?
Yeah.
So,
There's only one of us in the office who has the ability to get to Springbrook, Single Point. And that's myself. The other two can have a single point account, but they don't have full authority to do everything. That will not be the case as soon as we make the change.
Right.
So are you concerned that July 1st effective date waits too long to cede that authority to you?
Depending on what happens to the other position. Yeah, at least we can,
Whether they stay on or something, yeah.
2
If they
weeks
stay
then?
on, we have time.
Yeah. Well, and short of trying to call our treasurer at this moment, we're not gonna have that information before we do this.
I guess, Steve, my question would be, would it hurt to just do it, say July 1st, and that person could assist?
Well, what do you think, I had this idea earlier, I don't know if this, could we say that it's effective on a certain date or upon the resignation of the current treasurer, whichever comes first? And that way, we put a backstop to this, but then Sage has an out to trigger it whenever she wants.
Sure. I like it.
That way you can have the conversation with her and she says, well, I'll give you 2 weeks. Well, then it becomes 2 weeks. But does that sound,
Now, logistically speaking, I will say we probably need to make it effective June 30th, since July 1st is a Saturday.
yeah.
And then we go into the first week of July, July 4th is Tuesday, Monday's gonna be worthless for working because of the national holiday, so.
Well, in a sense, rethinking that right now, by putting a date on that, yes, she can resign prior. But is that, looking at that date, is that pushing her out? Could it be viewed as
Pushing her out the door.
pushing her out the door?
It would be the maximum date. I mean,
I mean, my point is, like, if you make it December 31st, which is the end of the term,
I
or
guess,
unless could we sustain her helping? Would it be helpful, beneficial for her to help? To right now, like business as usual
right,
going on.
I get you. I'm trying to think about how to say this. As long as she chooses to hold that title, she has the privileges thereof. And so, for all the things that are going on in her life, with job and kids and everything else, as long as she chooses to hold that title, there are certain things that no one here could do in her stead. So if we put it to the end of term, we just have to know that she's in the driver's seat for good or for bad.
Right. All we are doing is eliminating the elected position.
That's our attempt tonight.
Right, is to forego that position as an elected official.
That's correct.
And to Bingaman's, or the attorney's thoughts on this, he saw no problem with that, correct?
His thought was that we should move forward with this, and the sooner the better. It left us, and I'm not sure without him here to answer that, but it leaves you open to,
Right, yeah, I just want, that's what you had said, and I just didn't want to.
which is,
So if
I don't have all the answers, but that's why this position is not open, and we're the last one.
Right.
So if there's two things that Donna's not doing in the treasurer's position right now, which was the transfer of funds and the writing of checks, right?
Well, moving of one account to the other.
And the reconciling of,
Now they're reconciling.
Yeah. So, in theory, maybe a few little hurdles to cross here, but in theory, Jess can move funds.
Yes?
We're not locked out of that fund, so there only is one thing that remains, and that's the writing of checks. Is that, okay,
We got that covered, it sounds like.
yeah. So it would,
Well, I'd make it clear that, you know, I think, I guess the question I have, are we obligated to run her out till the end? An obligation? Or,
are you referring to a legal obligation or a
Yeah.
moral obligation?
well, both actually. Both actually. But the same token, if the treasurers, if we're not getting our money's worth, I'll just say it.
So from a legal standpoint, I don't think I've heard of any legal obligation. From a moral standpoint, because she was appointed, she didn't even file money for a particular season, so it's not like she, if you run for commissioner, you plunk down a bigger filing fee and you expect to be able to get the salary during that time, all things being equal. But Sage wouldn't even have had to put down a filing fee. Aside from that, I had a discussion with her, and I did not pick up from that discussion that she was bothered by this concept. And to me, the one that looked her in the face as I discussed this with her, I did not walk away with a concern that we're doing something that's morally questionable when she seemed to be okay with it. But that's just my perception of having had the conversation.
I guess just morally, I just don't want her to feel, or that person, feel like they're being pushed out like a leper, that,
Yeah, I agree.
you know, I mean, that's not our intent by any stretch.
And when I spoke with her, I shared that we've been discussing this since well before she was involved with Treasure. We've been discussing this. I think, David, you brought it up first time shortly after you and I got appointed. So this isn't personal. It's been discussion that's gone through multiple treasurerships. If that's the word.
That is true.
My 2 cents, I think I'd just be inclined to stick 2 weeks on it and call it good.
I could agree with that. Give us some transition time.
Yeah, it gives her enough time, hopefully, that if she wants to participate and hand off, she can. But I'm not hearing anything that sounds like we're at risk that, oh no, there's this one thing that we're not doing and we have no plan on how we're going to do it. But that's just my 2 cents.
Chris, any input?
I just don't want to shove her out the door. I think maybe she should let us know what would be comfortable for her.
That would have been very beneficial, or will be, would have.
Levi?
I'm here.
What's your thoughts, my good man?
Oh. I honestly think that we should just change it over to an appointed or a hired position, appointed position. Is that how it's listed here?
Hired, basically.
Hired, yes.
But effective when?
That's kind of the debate we're having.
Did I hear the June thrown out there somewhere?
You heard
2 weeks,
2 weeks.
end of June, July 1st,
December
Yeah,
31st.
December
December
31st, yeah.
31st.
To the end of
On
the term.
resignation, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd make it next month.
Well,
My 2 cents, the end of June.
Now, I will throw out an idea. If it is the end of June, kids are out of school. I don't know what kind of pressure or relief that adds to our treasurer. I wouldn't propose to know. Depends on what the situation
That's
is.
why I thought maybe to let her know or let her tell us what would be comfortable for her.
okay, so end of June or resignation, whatever comes first.
Okay.
Any objections? No?
No, I honestly, I'm gonna have to vote with conscience and abstain from that because I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you. Without that person being before us right now, and wholeheartedly, the way I look at it, yes, I'm all for doing this. There's no problem of getting sorry, they probably heard that on my, and I'm no problem going with the new position. But if she's counting on, and I know there's other dynamics that figure into this, but if she's counting on, fulfilling her duties, then I just have an issue with that. It would be like we're booting you out, goodbye, is my only concern. But we have to draw the line someplace. But at this point, I'm just,
Maybe she can let us know, again, what's comfortable for her. How do you see yourself as a city employee?
Okay, maybe we should just do this. We've hammered out everything else. I move to table to the next meeting, and what we can do there is if we've heard from Sage, we can make it effective at the next meeting, which would be what?
Close to
14th.
the 14th of June.
So that
14th
would
of
be what, it'd be over 2 weeks.
3 days from now.
Be 3 weeks from now. It can be effective that night.
Okay?
Because we've resolved the rest of the issues. It's an actionable document aside from an effective date. So by then, we should have it in hand, and it will be 3 weeks or later from tonight.
Okay. But before we table it, there's just one other technicality at the top of this page, the top of this ordinance that's being written. It says, whereas the city position of treasurer is currently vacant. That's not entirely true. So I feel like for the strength of being accurate, we need to put a different word in there. It could be currently filled, currently
Unfiled.
unfiled. There's lots of words, but it's
okay,
filled. So we can't. The third whereas down.
okay. Okay, got it.
Sure.
There's too many whereases there.
Yeah, the third whereas. So
Yeah, there is a problem with that. Good eye. I mean, catching that. I didn't even read those, but
we just need to correct a word to put in there that
Yeah.
is other than vacant.
We can
So
think about that between now and the next meeting.
just leave that to be hammered out next time. Okay.
I'm sure we'll have,
it's transitioning. Is it transitioning to a clerk
Well, we
position?
could say it's currently filled. It's not an untruth. So
Right.
if she wants it to be done at that point in time, she can resign that day. It'll be unfiled or unfilled at that
it
point.
would be vacant at that
It'd be
point.
vacant,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Second on tabling.
Second.
Okay.
So we got a motion on the floor and a second to table this until
June 14.
June 14th. Per the notes that are penciled into the ordinance there.
I have been modifying it as we go along, and the areas in question are highlighted in yellow, and I will send that to everybody.
Okay? All in favor of that signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same? Okay, council, we'll let that one slide and, well, we'll table it until the 14th of June. Clerk's report.
So all of our incoming account is reconciled and balanced. That's good news.
All right. That's awesome.
Much of our outgoing account is complete with work scheduled for tomorrow with Springbrook. I estimate that Springbrook has worked about 3.5 hours so far. Our office has entered all beginning and ending balances, total credits and debits on all accounts for 2022 and 2023. We are very close to having January through April reconciled in both accounts, and we are close to being able to run a treasury report for each one of those, all the way through from 2022 to the current date in 2023. We've contacted the state auditor's office and explained that we are working intently with Springbrook to make corrections in the 2022 general ledger, and that we are highly committed to completing the corrections and submitting our 2022 annual report as quickly as we can. We're hoping to submit the beginning schedules on time. They've responded and said that they appreciate Harrington's dedication and attention to the annual report and will be happy to help if we have questions. We've had some positive responses to customers cooperating and bringing in past due accounts. We are hopeful that that will continue. I would say that the office is running better and more efficiently all the time. Springbrook training has made a huge impact.
That's awesome. Wonderful.
Donna, you are awesome.
Second.
That's good news, Donna. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Mayor's comments. There's been a lot going on lately. We had a successful car show. Haven't heard any major complaints about that, so.
Rummage sale brought in over $2,000.
Wow.
Really,
For the Heritage-
good for
For the
them.
Opera House.
I was there all 16 hours.
You brought in how much?
We're
Over
getting very
$2,000.
close to wrapping up our emergency water repair line. All of the physical things have been done now. They're spreading topsoil, and hopefully, maybe by the end of this month, they'll come in and spray the ground with seed, and that'll be the end of it. We've got several lines that are in process of being added, at least 4 new meters. One for the old lumber yard up here, which has been in a sale process. And I think that's gonna wrap up by the end of this week. So that building will be under new ownership. Other than that, things are still going along at the same rapid pace. The office is changing here. Things have been going very well, actually, with this new operation between the two that are working, and things are moving forward in a good pace there. Very good pace. I think that's about it for mayor comments. Unless anybody can think of anything else they'd like to bring up, or
We did have a couple of additions.
Yeah.
has this got to do with anything other than the additions to the agenda, or?
No, I'm referring to those.
Okay.
Well, I also forgot one that I'll start with so I don't forget it again. I was contacted by a citizen who was frustrated by there not being flower pots along that street by the old city hall. And so I'm curious, so did we put out all the flower pots that we have?
Well, it's my understanding that those flower pots were purchased by the chamber, is that true?
I have no idea. This
Okay.
is pre-me.
And I know the plants and the dirt
Yeah,
are
that is
provided
a-
by
School.
the school, and most of the handwork is done by a couple people that volunteer their time.
Yeah.
So basically those pots, it's my understanding, and I don't have any documentation to support this, it's all hearsay, that those were bought to put in front of all the businesses. So, like I say, this is not hard evidence. I don't have anything to back that up other than hearsay.
No. I guess I'd be curious, as our chamber representative, Joe, if you wouldn't mind seeing if the chamber thinks they own them.
I'll get an answer and email the conclusion or the findings to the council and the city government.
Okay?
For the standing agenda items, I wanted to thank the mayor, because it is his agenda, for taking the suggestion to add a standing clerk report. I found what we had here very helpful. But I would also maybe suggest that even if it gets refused, that we also continue to make room for library report. And then also Public Works. You know, for a while there, we had Devin and Dave we even did a work session down there, and I know Troy kind of being a one-man show and stuff, I don't know if he's really prepared or interested even to really want to share with us, but I want to at least make sure that the employees feel like they have the ability to say, this is why I made the list of asks that I have for tools, and these are the things I want you to know about the way my job is going. So that was that. And what was the last item that I had?
Public access of files.
Oh, yes, okay. So, the addition of a second clerk has brought on a number of little logistical things that we've been working on. As you can see, there are now twice as many clerk machines there, and twice as many monitors. Which, by the way, thank you to Councilman Armand for the donation of the machine. And then I also was able to acquire Office for that, which I'll submit the reimbursement for that. But fortunately, because I have access through various ways to a friends and family discount from Microsoft Company Store, it's a lot cheaper than the $300 one would normally pay for it. So it's $54. So. Yeah, the friends and family discount is not so bad. But with that, what you don't want generally is when two people are working on something to have files flying back and forth in email attachments, because then one person changes it and then they send it back to the other and back and forth and back and forth. So that's brought up the larger discussion of where do we store our files. And I've talked with the council before about the fact that we have a drive that is accessible to the clerks and the mayor, and then Joe has added some ordinances to there, and I've added some resolutions and ordinances, and this drive would be essentially open to any council member who wants it. It represents the files that are at files.harrington.city. And I have advocated before, with the caveat that this is just my opinion, that I believe that by and large anything that is subject to the Freedom of Information Act requests should be put in public view. But I've always tried to put an asterisk on that to say that's just me. Well, now as they're going to start sharing their files back and forth, it kind of becomes relevant of, do they follow my advice on that and put things in the public folder when they're done? Or I think we're kind of to the point where the council needs to provide some guidance on what is our position on openness by default. Is that just something that we do that unless it would have a Freedom of Information Act exception, Public Records Act exception, that we just put it out there?
I don't think we need to put on stuff that we aren't requested to. I mean, everything is public right now, by request, well, pretty much. But I wouldn't transmit it out to, until they fill out, they gotta go through the proper channels.
There's a couple of arguments, at least, that has informed my position that at least you guys might want to consider. One, just a general promotion of openness, that I think we gain more public trust when people know that we try and operate the city as open as possible. But two, in these next ones are more tangible in terms of their benefit. I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, Donna, but I don't think anyone's ever come into the city hall asking for a copy of the recording of the meeting, because now they have it on YouTube, right? Anything that we allow people to self-serve, we don't have to respond to their requests. And that every time a person comes in here and asks for a document or asks for a recording, that stops the clerks from doing what they were doing, has an interaction, and then they have to find the thing and give it to them. Whereas if we can say the stuff that we have, it's online. Go to files.harrington.city, you can serve yourself. Similarly, and the last point is that when it comes to audit time, if we can say to an auditor, here are our files, the whole public has access to them by and large, you can self-serve, because I know when we've gone through audits before, there's been a lot of back and forth. Well, we need this. Okay, so we go digging for that and we give it back to them. Now, they still might need help or navigating our organizational structure, but they might have a chance of finding more of what they need for themselves and leave us alone and just give us the result of their audit. If we can say, here are our files, and they go poking around through them for themselves. Those are some things that influence my position, but
I will say this. Anything, common request is people come in, want to know what they can do. How many chickens can I have? How tall can my fence be? Ordinances.
Yeah.
I think having people be able to search that from home is valuable.
I think so too.
And even if they don't have access to a computer, we have the capacity to, not here so much, but when we're over in the new location, to have a terminal set up that they can just, when they say, gee, how tall can my fence go? There's a computer, go put in fence and you can find out.
They can come in this building and do that.
They can do it from here. But point being is, like you said, self-serving is better. Now, I'm probably, even though somebody can request it, I would be hesitant to put our financials out there online.
That's what I was.
Yeah, because it's not that it's public knowledge, but there are people out there that would use that for unscrupulous purposes, and we don't need to invite that in our house.
Yep.
But I do like the idea of ordinances and resolutions, and even the minutes. Hey, Joe, did you really say that? There's the minutes. So that's my 2 cents on it. I want to be as open and transparent without adding a security risk.
So is that basically what you were referring to, Stephen, as far as files being?
yeah, I guess
Yeah,
what I'm
something.
seeking more than anything is some guidance. Because if Cynthia and Donna look at me and say, well, what folder should we put things in? I could only tell them what I would tell them to put it in. We as a council need to kind of come to a directive of, in general, these are the type of things we want to see public access, and these are the things we want to see not available directly through the website. Before we try and coalesce this, Chris or Levi, do you guys have an input?
After knowing the people that live in Harrington, I'm kind of concerned about those that may not have accessibility to a computer or know how to use one. That's fine, but other than that, sounds like a great idea to me.
How much of it?
The
exactly?
part of being able to look it up yourself.
Keep in mind,
Keep
this is going out there, so it's not just Harrington people.
Correct.
Yeah, it's open to the world.
Right. Well, and I'll be straight up. Do not think that we
No,
have
that's
not,
okay.
any one of us hasn't looked at other cities on how do they handle this situation. You know, any given situation. We rely on each other's and their ideas to formulate our own. So
Yeah.
that's part of the process.
Levi?
I think it's a wonderful idea.
Sure, but how much, how open by default? Share everything or make people ask for it?
There are things I would make people ask for. The ordinances themselves, I think it's wonderful to have them where they can look them up so they don't have to come in and pester Donna and Cynthia. Whose discretion would it be up to as to what would appear and what wouldn't?
Well, and that's
Did I open a can of worms there?
Well, no, this is the can of worms.
That is.
Short of the council deciding on every concept, my position, just solely me, is that if it doesn't have a Freedom of Information Act exception, which there are several, that it's open by default. Because
I don't have a problem with that at all. If it's public record, it's public record.
That's correct.
And if they have an easier way of accessing the public record other than coming in and pestering John and Cynthia, more power to them.
Maybe it would be helpful, real quick, for me to read off the Freedom of Information Act exemptions, public records exemptions, just because that might be informative to know what kind of scope we're talking about here. Helps if you turn the computer on. It was actually a good reminder for me because it had been a little while since I had looked at the exemptions listed in the RCWs to the Public Records Act. So it's just kind of a good reminder in general. Okay. Attorney communications, employee hiring, financial account numbers, law enforcement records, pending real estate transactions, personal information, which can include complaints and investigations, emails and texts, job applicants, performance evaluations, public conduct, and settlement agreements, religious affiliation, and taxpayer information, which actually that was a question we had a while back as it pertained to people's billing records. That is classified under taxpayer information, so that is exempt. And this list was informed by the MRSC's Public Records Act exemptions, and then also the Attorney General's list of Public Record Act exemptions. So that's what the state defines as the things that we are not required to give out. And actually, a subset of that list I listed, we're actually prohibited from giving out. They actually outline there's a difference. There's things that are at our discretion, and there's things that we cannot give out.
So in other words, somebody come in and want the address of everybody in town?
I don't know. I'd have to look again whether that's prohibited or restricted, but.
Or they want to see Water Public
bills.
Works employing or their performance evaluation.
Yeah, I know that's a no-no. But somebody wants to come and see what people are paying for the water, their utilities.
That sounds like personal accounts. That sounds like that's
That'd
under
be
tax.
taxpayer information.
Yeah.
So to try and coalesce what I've heard there, it sounds like Levi's position is aligned with mine. David and Joe are, and maybe Chris, if I'm mischaracterizing you, Chris, let me know, are more of in a position of let's put out the resolutions, ordinances, meeting information, not financials, and make them ask for the rest. Is that what I'm hearing?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay. So then, short of a resolution defining this, we can give guidance to our clerks that the overall consensus of the council then would be that the public folder should have ordinances, resolutions, meeting information, not including financials, And if we need further guidance, we'll address it in future meetings. But I will create another area to hold publicly accessible information that has not been specifically requested, that will not upload to the website. That was it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You bet. Joe, did you have something else?
I did not.
I think I'd like to add one comment. Tomorrow I'm going to go to Spokane and look at these desks and the pieces, the cubicles for the new city hall. If they look good, do you want me to pay this gentleman?
I would say to lock them down.
Okay?
They're a heck of a deal. I mean, if they're in good
We
shape.
obviously know it's a good deal. The city does not have,
We may not have storage
We
space
ne-
for it immediately.
well, I
But
think
we
we
can
can figure
find it.
that out. But we don't have cash in a petty cash in a cash drawer. We're talking about $300, is that correct?
If we limit it to, I'll make this brief. $300 for the 4 cubicles.
Cubicles.
Yes. The library, they also have some smaller versions, which is not much more than just a U shape with a workstation on it. That the library, when they, I should clarify, one person that I know on the library board thought that that would be a great addition to the library to be able to put them in here because they're pretty small and they're a lot cheaper. They're $40 a piece. I think the ones that we're talking about initially are the most important. I have a feeling the other ones are going to stay for a while, but ultimately I could see us finding a really good deal long term to get all of them. But I think for the immediate need, for me personally, get the 4 full workstations because those are what we're going to need first.
So if they look good, I will cover that tomorrow.
And then it's just a matter of me
Apply
coordinating
for,
getting in.
well, we need some kind of a receipt. Obviously, if you'll give me a receipt stating that there's 4 cubicles there and
Yeah.
what the cost was,
Yep.
I will get cash and pay for that.
Sold as is, they're used, correct? Or
They're used, but the nice thing is they're
Yes.
already put up, so there's no mystery of whether they go together or not.
Okay. Yeah.
They sound, from the looks of them and from the sounds of them, they are a brand called Herman Miller, which in the office furniture world is an extremely highly quality.
Are those the ones that were in the?
The ones that I had the picture up here.
Okay.
Yeah. So he told me there were 2. The backstory. He told me there were 2. So after our meeting, I called him up, said, "Hey, we want 2," and he said they're spoken for. So they're all 4 gone. He said, but they have through Sunday to pick them up. And so I called him today and said, "Did they get them?" And he goes, "Nope, I got all 4 here." I said, "Great, we're still interested," and it became this.
Okay.
So I will go there and look tomorrow, and if they look good,
Well, in context, did you say how much you expect these would have gone for new?
Oh, in today's market, cubicles of that quality are probably $5-6 grand a piece. The way these are outfitted, it's not just the walls; it's the workstation, which is an L shape. There's cabinets above. There's a pedestal, file pedestal below.
Who did you say the manufacturer, Herman?
Herman Miller.
Herman Miller.
So back in the late '80s in college, I worked for a company that installed those for different corporations because cubicles were king back then.
Oh, yeah.
And they were solid, they were quality, and I was stunned back then how much they cost. I mean, they were thousands of dollars per panel.
Well, anything desk, office and stuff has just gone nuts anyways. They want a bunch.
Well, this may be, I'll tell you, this is the aftermath of COVID, where people don't have to work in an office anymore, and that's where the benefit comes. So,
Do they have chairs too?
he said he's got a bunch of chairs. He said he's got a conference table, But I did see that in the marketplace, and he's asking for $1,000 for that, and I'll pass for a
How
while.
big is it?
It didn't look like it was that big.
Oh,
Chairs are like steel case or something?
I have no idea.
We have padding.
But if they, if he said you're welcome to look at anything he's got there, because he's got a whole office suite and he's trying to reduce it. It was a Mass Mutual life insurance producer's office, and he just got tired of managing people, so he's reducing the amount of space.
okay.
I mean, look, if you, I see the quality of chairs that we have around here generally, and I'm just one vote, but if you see some chairs that are some like flex steel chair or Herman Miller chairs or chairs that look good and they're built solid, and he's asking peanuts for them like he is these cubicles, I have no problem saying get it while we can get it, because
Should we authorize an amount for the mayor to go for?
yeah, probably smart.
If you can get chairs and all that stuff, I wouldn't.
What would you think, given that he's selling a $6,000 cubicle for $75, what do you think he would charge for a chair? Like $50 a chair? Chairs seem like people would buy that for their home office more than a cubicle.
50 to 100 probably.
I have seen chairs go. Chairs are all over the place. It's like bookshelves. One guy wants $50 for a bookshelf. The other guy says, "Come take it for free," and it's a better quality than the guy that's spending it for 50. So, chairs are readily available. I think it's what is it valuable to us. If he says, "I want $20 a chair," it's like, yeah, that's not worth it to me. If he was like saying, "Here, take 20 for 10."
No, I'm
Okay.
I'm thinking like desk chair. Wouldn't he have like
Oh.
steel, maybe like those?
He may have some office desk chairs.
I mean, something that's like the real version of that, or what Jess is in.
Well, those
And
are
if you pull the button, you don't fall through the floor?
those are quality ones. Of those are hundreds of dollars, $500-$600 a piece
Yes, they
potentially
are.
for top end ones.
Yeah.
So I thought you were talking about.
No. I'm talking about office equipment.
Okay.
Yeah,
$3.50 a piece.
yeah.
But I wouldn't go nuts. I mean, I would literally inventory how many do we actually need. Actually, hold off on that, because there are 2 sitting in the basement of my office that are collecting dust. Maybe I can get my
Okay.
company to
Well,
just
we know
get
that
those.
Donna stands, but Cynthia, does Cynthia want to stand?
I'd say-
Okay, so there's.
I would
We need
allow
5
her
right
to.
now.
You ask her that question.
I'm just envisioning the concept of us getting these cubicles and then having no good chairs to sit at. And then,
Well, what are we gonna get for a meeting right now? You need at least 5, 6. Done.
You don't like Fred's chairs?
No, you don't really want me.
Or George? Excuse me, those would be George, not Fred.
well, if Joe's already got some, maybe we should.
Let me find out. You know, quite honestly, Donna, there's 2 risers sitting in the basement of my office also that are being unused.
Hmm.
And I know you like those. Maybe Donna or maybe they can't hurt. I mean, it's obviously a thing to go to.
Yeah, the podium.
So
Well, I'll cover your cubicles until you decide to pay me back.
okay, got it.
Says this man wants cash.
He does want cash.
Yeah.
He does not want a check. He does not want card. Because I said it's a municipal check, and he goes cash. So I tried.
Okay.
Okay.
Public.
Last item on here is public comments, and I don't think we have any unless somebody's got some over the cell phone.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
So we got a motion on the floor to adjourn and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned at 9:20.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.